Most people think of Christmas as the essence of family holidays, wholesome, magical, and shielded from anything evil. Which is what makes my story a break from tradition. If it wasn't true, I would have kept it to myself, for the sake of preserving the happy image of a wonderful day for those who love Christmas. As a child, I already had my work cut out for me, with parents who were far from normal. My father hated Christmas and he refused to observe the day, which meant that I had to keep my mouth shut if I didn't want to incur his wrath. Mom was always out of it due to her issues with substance abuse. And Dad also had issues handed down from his father. Mom said that he was born with a bottle of beer in his hands, and at Christmas time the situation always worsened. It was like he had a secret vendetta for the holidays, and he did everything he could to make sure our house was Christmas free. When I was 10, things took a bizarre and evil turn for the worse. Some nasty friends of my parents turned up and they all decided to conduct a seance. I hid myself away in the bedroom while they all got wasted and tried to summon demons, to act as sentries against Santa, and to invoke Satan instead. I fell asleep and didn't wake up until around 3 a.m. Seeing as the house was silent, I went downstairs to check out the carnage. My parents and their guests were spread throughout the living room, passed out and draped over each other. It was disgusting, but I was distracted by a creepy noise. It sounded like old, creaky gears grinding against each other, and it seemed to be coming from the fireplace. The child inside me grew hopeful and excited, but something told me that I might want to run. When a dark creature started to clamber out the fireplace, my flesh began to crawl. The sound started turning into a mix of crackling skin and old bones being crushed. The creature looked like it had been incinerated to a crisp, but it remained intact as it continued to creep around the room, stepping gingerly over the bodies like it was trying to decide which one to choose. I saw the charcoal hands and long fingers reach for my mother's hair. I gasped loudly and it suddenly looked up. I'll never forget the eyes, like tiny fires in large burnt-out sockets. It opened its unholy mouth wide and screeched with a dry, crackling voice. I screamed when more creatures scrambled out of the fireplace. Running to my room in a blind panic, I could hear the demonic entities racing up the stairs behind me. When I got to my room and spun around to close the door, I saw at least 6 of those monsters only inches away. As I slammed the door shut, several of their charred fingers were chopped off. I screamed again when the fingers started growing into smaller versions of the black creatures. I jumped under the covers and cried while the demons tried to drag the sheets off me. Imagine my surprise when I saw my parents grabbing at me with a frightened look in their eyes. Maybe I imagined it all, but it was bizarre how everything changed from that day forward. My parents cleaned up their act, and the following year we started to observe the holidays, including Christmas. Mind you, I always keep an eye on the fireplace, in case those demons decide to return and drag my family to hell. When I was little, it was just my mom and I in this tiny house in a small town. I have a freakishly good memory, so I can clearly remember the layout of my tiny room, which was the laundry room from the previous owners. It was long and narrow, with just enough room for my crib against one wall and a window high up on the other. Now, I've always hated windows at night. I won't look out them. I keep the curtains shut or run past them. My fear has always been that I'll look out and see a face staring back. After a bad breakup in my early 20s, I moved back home with my mom, and after she observed this behavior, I told her my weird paranoia. She kind of laughed and proceeded to tell me that when I was about 2, I would scream and scream that there was a man in my window. I had nightmares, so she didn't really think much of it until one night she came in to shut me up, and there he was. A fucking man staring in the window. I looked at her like she was nuts. How could I not have known this? Then she continued to tell me that man was the father of one of my really good friends growing up. She told me he was known for peeping into single women's windows. She also didn't tell me I had a benign heart murmur, and when the doctor discovered it once again in my early 20s, that scared the shit out of me too. Thanks, Mom. This happened to a friend of a friend earlier this summer, as told by my friend. I'll call her friend Jane. Jane is a nurse who works a specific shift at a local hospital and keeps a really consistent schedule. She gets up at 5 a.m., takes a shower, and then heads off to work. Jane lives in a bungalow a block away from Green Lake in Seattle. For those of you unfamiliar, Green Lake is a really popular place for running, outdoor and park activities, dining, etc., and it's super busy during the summer. It's common for people to be out late at night during the summer, so Jane didn't think anything was amiss when she heard noises outside her house at midnight. She woke up again around 3 a.m., but this time the noises were louder, like something was hitting or tapping her house. She turned on all the lights and walked around her place, but didn't see anything, and went back to bed. She felt uneasy and didn't sleep well the rest of the night, and woke up just before her alarm went off at 5 a.m. As she sat up in bed, she looked through her open bedroom door to see a man on all fours, army crawling down the hall towards her bedroom. As my friend tells it, Jane screams, and as she goes to grab her phone to call 911, the man calmly stands, looks at her, and says, "Don't worry, I'm leaving." The man turned around and walked toward the front door. She shut her bedroom door and called the police. After the police arrived, she discovered the man had removed all of her window screens and presumably entered her home around the time she woke up at 3 a.m. The police did not believe he intended to rob her, since he didn't take any of her valuables. The only things he did take were her car keys and her house keys that were in her purse by the front door. My friend's husband is a cop and believes that the only reason this guy was so calm is because he has likely done this before. He also thinks he had probably been watching her for some time and knew her schedule well enough to attack her when she was most defenseless, naked in the shower. Whether he took her keys as a mindfuck or because he intended to come back is beyond me, but it's so creepy.